Maybe. Too late now. We're in it. Hello, everyone. This is Mark the Movie Man, and it is another edition of the Spoiler Room here on January 27 of 2016. And it's another discussion one where I just popped into my head the other day. I was watching a couple reviews and thinking of some reviews myself, and it came up with the idea of let's discuss what constitutes a film as a ripoff versus an homage, because those terms are thrown around a lot, especially on the interwebs. And so I wanted to gather some crew members together and have a discussion about it, bring some examples of films, and see, what films are ripoffs and what are homages, or, if those terms are really not being used like people think they should be used. And tonight, I have a great crew in the room for me. First off, we have the one, the only diva of the Spoiler Room. It is Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to, hear you all.
You get to hear us. And great to have you in the room again. And next to Dawn is the one and only BFD himself, Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn.
Yo.
Fantastic. Glad you could make it tonight. And next to Ben, we have Mr. Gonzorific in his house, the lovely Andrew Shearer. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Mark. I'm glad to be back in here with all you fine folks. Y'all are some of my favorite people to listen to. When I'm not on the show, I still listen to it. And I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. I appreciate that quite a bit, that you listen to us. You're one of our 5 listeners. No, I can't. Oh. maybe 8. No, we actually have quite a few out there, and we all appreciate your support, and make sure you tell us about us to your friends. And speaking of friends, we have one more crew member in the room. It's the bowtie ferret-wearing man himself. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Konbanwa.
What?
It's good evening.
Hold on, wait, let me get Google Translator out here. No, never mind.
Small wood.
Small wood. Jimmy Birch.
Jimmy Birch.
That's the wrong language, I would imagine.
Yeah. But that's a hint of what I'm bringing tonight.
He's bringing small wood tonight, folks. Look out.
Oh, my God.
I hope that's not part of the drinking game.
So we're going to talk about homage films. What makes an homage film versus a rip-off film? And I want to get just impressions right away. Get some context here of what people might think. Say a rip-off versus homage. What films do you think are, let's say, a rip-off? We'll start with the bad first. I will say. We'll start with ladies first. Dawn.
I knew you were going to do that.
You knew I was going to do that, didn't you? I'm sorry. Because ripoff is defined by Webster's Dictionary as a fraud or swindle, especially something that is grossly overpriced or an inferior imitation of something. So, Dawn, let's go with you first. What's a film that you would consider a ripoff? Or just in general, a film, what qualities of a film do you, for you, that you put it in the category of ripoff?
I really thought about this, and it was really hard to come up with something that is a true ripoff, mostly because I like to find the art in things and the originality in things. Pretty much anything you name by that's made for sci-fi, the whole subgenre of mockbusters, the Transmorphers film, blatant ripoffs.
You mean
but
like?
As far as homage versus ripoff,
Mm-hmm.
that the homage is a lot easier for me than the ripoff. Again, because I like to try to find the originality in things.
Sure.
A film that I thought was a pretty blatant ripoff, Man Thing.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Man Thing. Not only was it a ripoff of Swamp Thing, it's a ripoff of every single Native American spiritual film ever made. It brought absolutely nothing new to the source material.
So it's a poor imitation of the.
Oh God, yes.
That bad, huh?
Oh God, I can't believe I rewatched it.
You own it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. That's why I rewatched. I should have watched the other one.
So in what way was it a Fury? Was it just trying to be similar subject matter, but just didn't cover it right, or
Well, without getting a whole lot into the comic book versus comic book character,
sure?
um, just going from the two movies, Swamp Thing and Man Thing, they're both the monsters that are protecting their swamps, but where Swamp Thing actually seems to have a purpose, sort of, and interesting characters. It Man Thing just kind of was all over the place, not really knowing what they wanted to do and what they wanted the plot to be. It
They were trying to cash in possibly on the comic craze, and so that's why they.
Oh, this is even before that.
Oh, was
This
it?
was,
Oh,
yeah. The Man Thing was before they even had the fancy Marvel logo. Yeah, so this is all before that. I mean, Marvel wants to forget this movie ever happened. It was that bad.
oh, the 2005. So yeah, that was just before the big
Yeah.
the big craze. This was one of their last things before they made it big, actually, with their Iron Man. So, has anyone else here seen Man Thing? Would you agree that that film's more of a rip-off than a homage?
Well, that was based on a comic, right? Man Thing,
Yes.
the comic?
Yes.
So I assume the comic Man Thing came after the comic Swamp Thing.
Actually, they were released within 2 months of each other.
Oh my gosh.
Both of them, both comics are are inspired by, and I don't know, by the comic book character, the Heap.
Okay.
God, I feel like such a. Okay.
But
No,
it's in the comic tradition of ripping off each other's companies' intellectual property, so it works
Yeah.
well.
I was gonna say it's like comedians, they're stealing one-liners all the time. It's like, just kind of par for the course.
But the problem is, they didn't improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
Therein lies the problem. There was no improvement.
And you've also brought up though the Asylum pictures, which really are. Yes, I think if there was ever an example of a ripoff, and I want to get the feeling of the rest of the group, would you agree that, I mean, when you release War of the Worlds, only you call it HGL War of the Worlds, just before the Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg War of the Worlds comes out, causing headaches for all of those that work at Video Oasis. Would you say Asylum does rip off the blockbusters? They aren't doing an homage, but they're pretty much just cashing in. Glenn, what do you say? Glenn? Hello, Glenn? Did we lose Glenn?
Either that or he's so stunned by Man Thing.
No,
I
sometimes
hope I
Glenn
didn't break
takes
him.
a while to form
Think
his
about
thought.
his answers. Oh, there he goes. Oh, we can't hear him, though.
Sorry.
Oh,
Oh.
there it goes.
Sorry. Phone was ringing. I had to check.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
So,
I missed everything you said.
okay, we'll start again. That's why we edit and post. So, Glenn, Dawn mentioned Asylum as a ripoff, and I kind of agree that Asylum does rip off blockbusters. They're not doing homages or whatnot. Would you agree with that assessment, or would you say...
I don't think I would say that they rip off stuff, because ripping off is not a big enough word for what they do.
Wow.
No, absolutely they do. I mean, it's not even a question of whether or not they rip off stuff. I mean, that's how they make their money.
the true cash grab
Yeah.
of it, naming the movie the same War of the Worlds, or what was it, King Kong? They had King of the Jungle, I think it was.
Yeah, and they had a Hansel and Gretel one.
Transmorphers.
Yeah, I mean that's so many of their movies are. They did a Thor one as well.
Oh, that's right, they did, didn't they? Oh,
Yes.
I think my favorite one was Snakes on a Train. I can't even say it with a straight face.
I own that one.
Don owns that one. Of course you do.
Of course.
Andrew, what about you? Would you say Asylum, if you're looking for a prime example of films that rip off other films, would you say Asylum fits in that category, or is that too harsh for them?
I mean, it's an inferior imitation, so it's like the definition of
Sure.
a ripoff. But I will say this in the defense of the Asylum, their comedies, their sex comedies, they rock. They are so good. Like, if you've not seen Sex Pot, man, please watch that. That is such a they are so gross. They're like they're holding it down for like Trauma, and it's like Trauma does American Pie or something. Oh, they're great. Bikini Spring Break. I really tried to get that one on Film Jerks.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think that did come up, and yeah, I haven't seen their comedies, but I've heard of that they're actually
good.
really good.
Yeah,
Didn't
but
they-
I can't, man. Transmorphers. I watched a little bit of it because Jennifer Rubin from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was in it. Oh boy, I mean they don't even give a shit. I mean it's just. I think it's a goof, honestly. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's just painful. Paul, would you agreement with the group that Asylum, if you're looking for what a true definition of a ripoff film is, it would be Asylum?
Definitely, because I have this tolerate-hate relationship with the Asylum. So yeah, I definitely agree with the rest of the group.
And see, it's weird with Asylum. They're one of those studios where occasionally I kind of like their original stuff. They're like Mega Shark series and Mega Piranha in it. Those are hilarious, you know. But would you consider those homage to monster films, or are they ripping off the monster films? Because I mean I can understand, you know, the ones that are specifically named right after a blockbuster, but then you get their monster films, their Mega Shark series, or you know, Giant Octopus, Mega Piranha, their monster series. Would you say those are homages to monster films, or are they trying to cash grab in on the monster craze and ripping those films off?
By my definition, they are homages because of how I define the difference between an homage and a ripoff. It's a very specific type of line that I draw.
Well, according to the definition of homage, it's respect or reverence paid or rendered. It's also the relationship thus established of a vassal to his lord. But
That's like Pacific Rim to a T, though, by that definition.
well, I considered Pacific Rim an homage versus a ripoff.
Oh yeah, because he made stuff different. Like it doesn't. I think they consciously did not make any of the kaiju resemble. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, I think that I thought while just that conversation you guys were just having, I thought of Pacific Rim immediately.
So Asylum doesn't put out all ripoffs; it does put homages. Would you say that, Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they do both.
Mhm.
But I think they do the ripoff much more. I think most of what they do is ripoff because I don't think they're doing it as a sign of respect in some way. They're doing it solely to make money. And I suppose in that way they're doing respect to capitalism.
So it's an homage to capitalism.
Woot woot.
Dawn, how about you? Would you consider those monster ones?
To a point. I would further define homage as especially when it comes to the companies like the Asylum that crank them out and make so many without regard for how saturated the market is. We don't need three-headed shark attack. I'm sorry.
But that's a sequel to Two-Headed Shark Attack.
But by definition, then a sequel is a ripoff.
This is true. You're right.
But with the Asylum, it's a case-by-case basis because which one is that? Giant Anaconda versus Gatoroid, an improvement on. Yeah, I think we're alone now.
I love that movie. I just gotta say.
Is that one an improvement on? Oh God, I can't even remember the one. Is that an improvement on the previous one?
Well,
What was it?
they had a number of those versus ones. There was
They really-
was it Gatoroid versus
Mega Shark.
Yeah, Gatoroid.
Yeah.
That one really, that one was stretching it because I'm like, dude, Gatoroid's just gonna stand on the shore, and go, yeah, look at Mega Shark.
So then the question becomes, which one is a ripoff of which, and which one is the actual homage? Because that is it an improvement?
Right.
Because they're only paying respect if they're improving on the source material
And
or mocking it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there was there Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark, which actually I kind of enjoyed. That even had some sci-fi icons in it. Well, not icons, but people who've been in popular genre shows in it. Is it poking fun at the Godzilla series, Don?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you don't think it's homage. It's picking on it. It's ripping it off, basically.
It's yeah. Oh God, yeah.
So yeah, so everybody can see, my listeners, why I wanted to do this, because it's kind of interesting to see, what comes up as considered ripoff versus homage. Here we have a studio that kind of does both. So let's go down the line to the next ripoff. Glenn, do you have a film that you consider ripoffs that we may not have mentioned so far?
Fistful of Dollars.
Ooh, Fistful of Dollars. So you don't think that was an homage to the samurai film? You think
No. No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Fistful of Dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I love the movie. But it's definitely a ripoff of Yojimbo. I mean, absolutely a ripoff. I mean, to the fact that they, Sergio Leone and the studio had to pay Akira Kurosawa a settlement for plagiarism.
Oh, because it was so familiar, so close to it?
Yes. He denied it. Of course he denied it. Why would you say, yes, absolutely, I plagiarized you? Of course I did. No.
Yeah, it is hard to ignore, especially if you're a fan of Kurosawa, to watch. Well, all three samurai film with Mifune were the Man with No Name series, weren't they?
Pretty much.
They're pretty much ripoffs of those samurai films.
Yeah.
And then I'll go one further. Then you have, I guess you could consider it an homage just because I think the director said it was supposed to be. I just watched the film today. It was The Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis,
Yep.
which is
Walter Hill. That's a good movie.
which is actually I was getting a kick out of it. It's been a long time since I watched it, and it's a film that takes a little while to pick up, but yeah, it is a beat for beat film of A Fistful of Dollars. But in this case, I believe the director acknowledged the fact that that's what they were going for, only it was with gangsters in a desert with bootleg gangs rather than thugs controlling a town. And yeah, that film is actually pretty decent, but if you watch the other two, you can see it just all peppered throughout the entire film. I mean, just the way his character acts. Has anyone here seen The Last Man Standing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and did you like it, Don?
I did.
Yeah.
I thought it was a successful homage, or an effective homage.
Right, because it did feel a little more respectful to it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. I mean, they didn't come out and they came out and were saying, yeah, well, this is what we're trying to do, rather than covering. No, I'm not trying to make A Fistful of Dollars. No, what are you talking about? This is all original. It just has many similar aspects. Andrew, what about you? Did you enjoy The Last Man Standing?
Yeah, I mean, I went into it knowing what that was their intent.
Sure.
It was made very very public that was the intent. So it just comes down to like a great story, and the Yojimbo style, the framework, the way the story is told. It's like a lot of Kurosawa's stuff has been redone in structure. You know what I mean? It just is like the modern folklore. and he's a master. So a lot of movies on accident, you know what I mean, on pure
Sure.
accident have imitated that. It's just because it's one of those things that's just it's great storytelling. You can't not. So I thought Last Man Standing did the responsible thing and went ahead and said, you know,
Yeah. Well, they even give credit of the story to Akira Kurosawa in the
very,
credit.
very smart. They remember that lawsuit, I would imagine.
They probably did that Glenn mentioned. Paul, what about you? Last Man Standing and Fistful of Dollars and Yojimbo. Do you feel that?
Definitely homages, but also to the Wizard and the Sorceress. There's also a movie called Django,
Yes.
and Youth of the Beast are all very much kind of that same Yojimbo line of
Mhm.
movies. You know, kind of follows that structure like Andrew said. So
For sure.
I definitely think that all of those fall into that category. In fact, a lot of Kurosawa's films
Mhm.
are very much, you know, constantly reproduced, redone, homaged, ripped off. You know, Rashomon was done quite a bit,
Oh
you
my
know, in different
God,
ways.
that's like the prime example of Rashomon. Oh my
Mhm.
God, it's just it's like a word that's just used to describe narrative style.
That style, yeah,
At this
exactly.
point.
Because it's been used so much.
Yeah.
So, Fistful of Dollars, Glenn. Though, so you said you enjoyed it, but that compared to Last Man Standing, would you say Last Man Standing is the homage and Fistful of Dollars is the ripoff?
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, Last Man Standing, they credited
Sure.
Kurosawa.
Hmm.
So, I mean, they admitted that, yes, we are copying Yojimbo.
So would differentiate between a ripoff and a homage come down simply to possibly the filmmakers coming out and being honest about what they're doing versus going, not giving credit or anything to whatever the source material is? Could it come down almost simply to something like that? Or does the film have to be at least decent if they're doing an homage?
I think the attempt has to be decent.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you can't guarantee. I mean, you can set out to make a good movie. I mean, I think a lot of people who set out to make movies don't set out to make something that's terrible.
Sure. No.
They're trying to make something good. So
Right.
just the fact that it's a bad movie doesn't necessarily automatically mean it's a ripoff.
Hmm.
Because there are homages that are bad. I'm sure there are.
Sure.
But I think it comes down to the reason why it was made, and and giving credit as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think intent.
Especially when you're directly confronted with the fact that you copied me exactly. No, I didn't. yeah, you did.
Yeah, just admit it,
Oh no,
man.
not exactly. I'm sorry. Your guys are in the Old West. Mine were in,
Yeah. But yeah, that story's been told a number of times, and Kurosawa's stuff. I mean, it shows that he does have an influence on it. So Andrew, I'm going to ask you before we get to your if you have a ripoff example, would you say that it's okay because Quentin has come out and said that he stole ideas of his from films that he loved. So is that all right if the filmmaker is so influenced by another filmmaker that they use that style in their film? Is intent in there as well that at least they come out and admit it? I mean, it's kind of a gray area actually.
I say if you take it and don't change it, that's a ripoff, no matter what your intent was.
Sure.
I mean, that's stealing. That's ripping off. That's the definition. If someone runs up to you and takes your wallet out, they just ripped you fucking off. You know, I mean, it's. I love Tarantino. I love Rob Zombie. I love a lot of the people that wear their influences on their sleeve. And you watch their movies and you go, oh man, that's from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or oh man, that's from Coffee or whatever. It's great. It's fun to watch, and it's cool for them to do. I've done it as a filmmaker myself many times. It's just, but it's still, if you're taking it and you're not doing anything to change it, you're just taking it, using it again. You've ripped it off. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing in that kind of a case.
Right, and no, I mean, if something works, someone else is going to use it. I mean, it's, the car works. It was invented. People use the car because it's a great way to drive around, or some people feel that way, or the bicycle. The fact that two different people make the bicycles, yeah, they might have ripped off the plan from the original bicycle designer, but is that a bad thing? Which is, again, why I wanted to sit down and talk with all you fine folks on this, because we use the term ripoff, and a lot of people use that in a negative connotation, but can you have a ripoff in a positive way, Paul?
Well, yeah, the Kill Bill movies, right?
Yeah, the Kill Bills are exactly that. They are. You're absolutely right, Andrew.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. We're
No,
talking
no,
to
no.
Paul.
No, it's okay. Paul, what about you? Would you say that it's okay to rip off, or that rip off doesn't necessarily mean bad?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that assessment. In fact, I agree with it so much, there's nothing I can really add to that.
Sure. No, that's okay. Andrew put it perfectly as the Kill Bill series. I mean,
Or City on Fire, same movie as Reservoir Dogs. But I don't think he hated City on Fire. Obviously, he loved it because
Sure.
he copied it.
It does bring up an interesting subcategory of the ripoff, which is parody. I mean, technically parody could be considered a ripoff, but I don't think it's intended. We were talking about intentions and stuff
Sure.
like that. I think parodies are intended to be homages, but really they're ripoffs.
Well, or poking fun at too.
Even still.
Paul's right. It's the same thing. You're taking
Is it?
something right away from it and throwing it right back out there without any real alteration. If it still smells like it and looks like it and feels like it, it is it, and therefore,
So, Andrew, what's a ripoff film that you brought, or that you would consider a ripoff?
Well, my whole through line in this episode, just to let everybody know, is Virgin Spring, Last House on the Left, Chaos. So that's kind of where I'm going.
Okay.
So Chaos being the absolute ripoff of Wes Craven's Last House on the Left. Chaos is a movie that is so awful, so bad, so vile that when I got this hold of screener in the early 2000s, I refused to review it. It made me so angry because these people claimed, despite the fact that their film Chaos was Last House on the Left just with the names and the ending changed, I'm watching it going like, how can they do this? How can they get away with this? If I had had Wes Craven's phone number, I would have called him or Sean Cunningham. You know what I mean? I was so mad. I'm like, because, and then I go like, there's got to be an interview where they talk about Last House on the Left. There's got to be something where they go, oh man, this is a great movie. We're going, nothing. Matter of fact, they claim to have never seen it.
Really?
And I'm like, you are the worst. You are the freaking worst. You're the bottom of the barrel. And the only thing that broke that open was Roger Ebert happened to see it. And he gave it the worst 0-star possible and saying, they missed the whole point of Last House on the Left. But the thing is that these people were, not only were they ripping off a great movie, they were assuming, because this was before the culture of Grindhouse, this was really before DVD or file sharing. This was before there was a awareness, and maybe even before Last House was back in circulation on home video. They just assumed, quite like Fistful of Dollars, that the audience that would watch this would have no knowledge of the material they were ripping off, and therefore, and what made it worse was Sage Stallone, rest in peace, was involved. He was in the movie Chaos, and I'm like, if anybody, Sage Stallone should have had an attack of conscience about this because he was started Grindhouse releasing. He knew what he was doing. I could not freaking believe it. Awful. I mean, to this day, it makes me mad thinking about that movie. And it's considered awesome now. Like, I've seen it at revival screenings and stuff, and they're talking about how brutal it is. It takes everything that was great and effective about Last House on the Left and turns it into a broy, gross, evil piece of crap.
Wow. Dawn, have you seen Chaos?
No, and you're very convincing. I don't want to see it. Very, very convincing.
Glenn, what about you? Have you seen Chaos?
I have not, but now I want to.
I didn't want to draw attention to it.
So I could be disappointed.
Glenn wants it just so that he can rant on it.
And I take no joy in taking movies apart or
No.
knocking someone's art because, you know, a lot of people worked on Chaos and you know, tried to make the best movie they could. But the thing is, all they had to do was say we are remaking the cult classic Last House on the Left, and they didn't.
Sure. Yeah, and that, I guess, is the tough, just like with Glenn was saying with the Fistful of Dollars. Oh, no, that's not Yojimbo. Oh, no. Completely different.
Yeah, I was so insulted. I'm like, how can they do this?
Sure.
Why would you do that? I mean, it was awful. I'm still upset about it, as it turns out.
Well, I didn't mean to bring up a subject that might.
No, I debated coming on here because I didn't want to talk about this movie, but it was the best example I could think of because I didn't want to sit and talk about Avatar and Dance with the Wolves because that would be like the easier way to go. You know, I wanted to put something I know something about.
Right.
Avatar and Fern Gully.
Yeah.
Fern
Gully.
True. Yeah.
Oh, Fern Gully. Oh, you had to bring up Fern Gully. Oh, bad flashbacks. Anyway.
Oh, I love Tim Curry.
Yeah, man. I'm a Land Before Time fan.
Inland Before Time, yes, the first one.
Yeah, when I saw Avatar, the first thing I said, we walked out, I was like, well, that was Dances with Fern Gully.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly right.
Nice.
You are right. Yeah, so there's a couple examples right there, folks, of big named films that have kind of ripped off from one another. Paul, what about you, sir? You got a rip-off film?
I do actually. I did kind of like Andrew did, where I started a film. I picked a film, which in my case is Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Oh, okay.
And then I have an example of a rip-off and a homage, according to my definition. So I'm going to start out by saying what my definition of homage is.
Sure,
I kind of hinted at it that I have this definition. To me, an homage has to honor the source material. It has to be inspired by it and not copy it. I basically want my homages to be nods to and not scene-for-scene recreations. Because if it's like a scene-for-scene recreation, you might as well say Ice Ice Baby as an homage. You know, that sort of stuff.
A good example, dude.
So really, we were talking about omitting it. To me, it doesn't mean anything to me, because just like in copyright laws, you have to transform the material. Even derived works would be considered a ripoff to me. It has to be totally transformed to be something that to me would fit my definition of homage. But again, parody and ripoff is not a bad thing according to my way of thinking of it. So anyways, my ripoff is to Seven Samurai is The Magnificent Seven.
Oh yeah.
Which goes on and part of that goes to like Battle Beyond the Stars, Three Amigos, the Wild East, and there's even an Italian film called the Seven Magnificent Gladiators. Which,
Seriously?
Yeah. So it's amazing how this one film, like in different languages, got ripped off. But it's basically the same thing. And I know a lot of people would think it's an homage, and that's why it was important for me to state my definition.
Sure. Because
with my definition, it's very, very, very hard not to create a ripoff, really. But yeah, basically the Magnificent Seven is probably the prime example of it. It's basically where they take all the characters and replace them with gunfighters instead of samurai, And
it's the same story though.
Exactly, same story. Even the ending is very much the same, with part of the group dying and the people that are left realizing that the only winners are the villagers, basically.
Well, even Battle Beyond the Stars was like that. You don't have everyone surviving. You've got the grave sites already dug, just kind of like.
but I loved Battle Beyond the Stars, And I guess Bugs Life.
I was gonna say nobody mentioned Bugs Life.
Bugs Life, yeah.
It's the same story too.
Oh, that's true. It is the same story.
Totally, dude.
Man, so Hollywood's been borrowing from itself for years. And it just means I take that as it's a good story and people like a good way to tell it or a good story in general, and so they want to do it. And like you said, Paul, for you've got to have an original spin on it
To be an homage, yes.
to be an homage.
Yep.
See, mine, I can't quite say the one that came to my head instantly is just because it's of the same name. So it was technically a remake,
Oh.
but it was the Psycho shot-for-shot ripoff. That I think I could call as a ripoff, not even a remake.
Re-imaging.
Fuck that.
I knew you were going to pick
my
this one, Mark.
ass. Yes, I know people consider it a remake, but a remake brings something new. Someone doesn't take the fucking shot sheet and go, okay, we're going with original Alfred storyboards and shot sheet. Here you go. I didn't even have to do any work. We're just using this same thing, and we're going with this. But we're going to modernize it. So we're going to add little things that make it completely sleazy rather than the level that Alfred had it that was borderline. No, we're going over that line. And Psycho did that. Psycho ripped off. I want zombie Alfred Hitchcock to come up and just beat the snot out of whoever greenlit the Psycho. Because it is. I mean, we're not talking about just a remake, folks. We're not just talking about an homage. They took the shot sheet and they replicated the shot sheet until you get to the most famous scene in horror history. Then we get creative. So I know it's a remake, but would you say, Glenn, that the Psycho quote-unquote remake was actually a ripoff completely of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho?
Well,
Not even a remake, just it was like...
It was an insult.
It was. So I'm not the only one, am I, guys, that feel this way about this film, though? I mean, Andrew, how would you feel if someone took your exact shot sheet and go, we're going to just shoot this exact same film?
I would actually think that was pretty cool. I mean, I have remade a scene. I've done the shower scene from Psycho, just as an exercise. I have a friend who was really into, and we changed it a little bit. The film's called Travel Size. You can watch it on Vimeo, and basically instead of a normal size Norman Bates, she's killed by an action figure.
Oh, sweet.
She puts her travel size shampoo in there and her little travel soap. Everything's smaller, so she's murdered by a smaller Norman Bates. That's the joke of the thing. But we did it just to see, how hard it would be to get those shots, because Hitchcock did it all on a. Oh God, I don't need to go into this. But so to me, I actually don't hate the Van Sant version of Psycho. I mean, the idea of it is atrocious, and offensive and all of those things. But I just see it as like, if I were a filmmaker, I am a filmmaker. What am I saying? I did Travel Size because I wanted to see.
Sure.
I just wanted to do it. It was with respect. To which, in that regard, it was homage because it was done out of respect and reverence and celebration of a great film. And so, I think Van Sant's Psycho is probably both.
Mm-hmm. A ripoff and homage?
Yeah, I think so, because he's showing absolute respect and reverence to the point where he's basically for the most part going exactly with it, and we all knew that that's what it was going to be. Whether or not it should happen is a conversation for another time, because Hollywood isn't about should. God, no. So, with that in mind, that's an interesting one because, I do think a little bit of both is happening there. Definitely a ripoff because nothing new is really happening.
Sure.
But I also don't think there was any disrespect meant. I think it was done with complete reverence, obviously, because of how little was changed.
Well, and I'm glad you could see the film that way, Andrew. For me, I couldn't, especially because of the little. He chose to do shot for shot, but then he decided to take just a few scenes, and just by adding sound effects and a little bit extra, brought it down to a more sleazy level. I felt. Dawn, how about you? You
I
saw the
didn't
Gus?
see it.
You didn't see it? Oh,
No, you
anyone
told
else?
me not to.
Oh, that's right, I did, didn't I?
Oh, Mark. Don't make up your own mind.
I didn't
You've been
think
telling
anyone.
me. You've
I
been
didn't.
telling me for the last 5+ years not to see it.
I didn't think
So I
anyone
didn't.
I didn't think anyone listened to me. So I figured you'd just go ahead and see it anyway. Going F, but he's F. What the hell does he know? Uh, Paul, did you see the Gus Van Sant?
I did, but as you're discussing it, you know how you're describing the subtle changes? I'm thinking back to what I said about Ice Ice Baby. It was the same exact thing.
It was a great
It's
comparison.
just different right at the end. It has a different hook right at the end. That makes it enough different to be totally original.
Well, it's the reverse of Rob Zombie's Halloween, right? He
Yeah,
changes,
sure.
it
changed
up
everything,
until he gets till near the end, and then he just starts beat for beat copying it.
I hear sighs from Glenn. Glenn, did you want to weigh in on Gus Van Sant's Psycho?
No.
see, and the thing that I have with that, and Andrew, I'm glad, and this is exactly what I love about this group and why I want to do this, because for me, I was like, okay, you're going to do a shot for shot, that's fine, but then he got creative in parts where you don't need to get creative. Like, in the original, and this is a spoiler room, folks, in the original Psycho, if you haven't seen it, shame on you. But there's one point where he peers through the wall and spies on Marion Crane as she's getting undressed to go in the shower. In the original, that's all he's doing. He takes it down, he stares, he watches, he puts the picture back, walks away. Gus Van Sant decides, no, that is too vague for the American audience. We need to put the sound of him unzipping his fly and whacking off while he's watching Marion Crane through the hole. Really?
But that's what Hitchcock was doing on set, though. So I think he just added real life stuff to it.
So it was actually a docudrama about Hitchcock.
Yeah. The question
Gotcha.
goes, would Hitchcock have went that far if he could have?
I don't know.
A lot of the great classics are the great classics and subtle, and all that other thing because the people were either too scared or knew they couldn't do certain things.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I do thinking about this now, the conversation again, it made me think of Rob Zombie's Halloween and how he seemed so scared to change it at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
He just stuck to the playbook, and that pissed me off.
And I guess for me, I really love the original Psycho, as you can tell. And for me, you say you're going to make a shot-for-shot remake. We're going to just, with the modern characters, basically re-show Psycho. I was like, okay, but then you change these little elements that I felt brought it down a level that it felt like they missed the point of that scene, of the whole point of him. He wasn't able to touch himself, and therefore that's what made it, that brought him into conflict even more, where in this one he is, which didn't make sense for the Norman character who has mom living in his head. So, for me, I guess that's where I ran into the conflict with a scene like that. And there's a couple other scenes too, like right in the beginning they do the hotel scene, and you get the fact that she's cheating on, she's with this married guy or whatever in this hotel room that is by the hour, yet they felt the need to put in the sound effects of people having sex in this hotel, which are the loudest people in the world having sex. I'm like, wow, this is a really bad hotel.
I've been in hotels like that, though.
I know. But
the one we shot the Psycho shower scene thing, because we were looking for a vintage-looking hotel. Motel. We ended up at a real sleaze bag. There was a sign on the window. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into this. I think you guys will think this is funny. It says no refunds after 5 minutes, taped to the bulletproof glass.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the weird thing was when we left, we shot about 4 hours, and then we left to get the whole thing. The cleaning people were like, "You guys are leaving already?" I'm like, "This cannot be the quickest someone's left this place." 4 hours? Are you kidding me?
Pizza.
Excellent choices by everyone for the rip-off films, and we've kind of touched on some homage films, but now I kind of just want to get direct titles from you guys on what you feel is a really good, a really close homage film, and as you've seen, folks, we've already established there is a gray area where one can be both. But Dawn, we'll start with you again. Hit me with a tried and true, excellent homage film that you just love.
Okay, so homage films. John Carpenter, In the Mouth of Madness. For that matter, I can toss Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead, homaging
Equinox.
actually H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much anything H.P. Lovecraft, because it's all the Cthulhu Necronomicon. But further than that, John Carpenter homaging himself with from In the Mouth of Madness with Cigarette Burns, which I think is a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
So Cigarette Burns would be the homage to
In the Mouth of Madness,
In the
which
Mouth
is
of Madness.
inspired by the mythos from Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. Well, Lovecraft is definitely an inspiration for many horror filmmakers out there, just because of the material that's there. I can see why, and yeah, I can definitely see that, especially that Necronomicon reference with Evil Dead.
Yep.
But you can see that peppered throughout some of the horror. But so In the Mouth of Madness is a really good film, and in all honesty, Cigarette Burns, I think I've watched once, but I remember it being really good. I've got to watch it again because a lot of people keep bringing it up.
I'll bring it over.
You bring it over, okay. Sounds good. So that would be a good homage film. We'll just roll through. Glenn, how about you? A really good homage film then for you.
You guys already talked about mine. The one I was bringing was Last Man Standing.
Oh, Last Man Standing. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was your good one. I apologize. I took that from you. I took the rug out from under you. I apologize.
That's all right. Great minds and all.
Apparently so. But again, yeah, Last Man Standing. Though, did you feel that film took a little while to get going? Because for me, it took me a little while to get into it. I just watched it today. I literally watched it for the show.
Been a while. I don't remember it taking that long to get going, but I mean, I could be wrong. But it's been a while. But I just remember Bruce Willis beating people up and shooting people and getting beaten up.
Folks, if you haven't seen The Last Man Standing, you should, if alone for the Bruce Willis guns, which project people into the air when he shoots them.
Yeah.
It is a fun ride, and the fact we talked about it already, but that is an homage film. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take that rug out from under you, Glenn, for that one. We'll roll Andrew for you, a homage film. If we haven't already brought it up, what's a really good homage film for you?
Well, I'm since I'm on this kind of this line here, I brought all the Last House on the Left and Chaos and Virgin Spring. So, Last House on the Left, 1972, is an homage to Ingmar Bergman's 1960 classic Virgin Spring, which is itself based on a Swedish folk tale, I think, from like the 13th or 14th century. And the interesting thing about it is, the further back you go, the more fucked up the story actually is. Should be a surprise to no one. But Virgin Spring is an incredible film, and Wes Craven has always stated that he was deeply influenced by the structure of that film. But the thing about Last House is that not only does it acknowledge it, does not rip it off, because it creates its own new characters, its own new plot, its own new structure, and all new meaning as well. And that's a really kind of important thing, and that's something that Chaos forgot to do. It just wanted to be brutal and violent. Wes Craven is talking about and commenting on a whole different thing than what Bergman's was commenting on.
Sure.
But all he's retaining is that twist.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he's keeping, And I think that's great because that's how great storytelling continues. You can sit and watch Last House on the Left, and you can sit and watch Virgin Spring and have two completely different experiences, two completely unique experiences, and they are both incredible movies. Whereas with Chaos, you just want to, you just get furious, and you would kick your TV apart if you watched all three of these in the same day. Because the first two, you'd go like, hell yeah, I'd love that. And then you'd go, hell no. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, go finish up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm good. I feel like I rambled already too much.
No, not at all. Would you say though? Then I think some people miss that point with Homage because, especially Quentin Tarantino, Paul Rodriguez's Grindhouse. After that came out, oh my lord, were the quote-unquote homage films that I think missed the mark because they just thought, well, we'll just make it look retro and be ultra violent, and that's all you need.
Yeah, I mean, Grindhouse itself missed the mark.
Yeah,
I mean, God, what is Planet Terror really? It's not 70s, it's 80s.
Sure.
Sure. Maybe Nightmare City, you could kind of argue it, but like, there was no CG in Grindhouse movies. None of them were shot digitally, so it was like, yeah, it missed the point. It created a whole new, like, we're still witnessing the fallout of people ripping off Grindhouse. Oh God, what did it do? So no, you're absolutely right. It's a matter of, I feel like, we talk about intent here, and they all, except for I Feel Chaos, which was done out of complete. They thought the audience was stupid and wouldn't know. In the case of Wes Craven, he definitely was being reverent to it.
Sure.
But there's more than just letting people know, hey, this is what we're trying to do. It's taking what you did, and that's like essentially like what can set the great movie remakes apart from the not so great ones. It's like how much you deviate from the original material.
Right. I mean, a classic point with the remakes and originals is, for me, just a brief mention, I enjoyed the Crazies remake because they basically took the story and the concept in the Crazies and told the same story from a different perspective. Rather than it mostly taking place in a lab or just a couple places, they told it from the perspective of people in the town when the crazy stuff was actually happening.
Yeah, and it's like Three Amigos and then Galaxy Quest. One's not in space.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Both similar in theme. One's not in space. Both in concept and that.
But they're great movies. You can watch them back to back and enjoy both.
Right. Exactly.
Caw!
Good night.
Look at me! Look at me! Yeah, absolutely.
But, right, you could sit and quote Galaxy Quest as well. They really, that's a great example of, two ideas that are pretty similar. Well, actually, for that matter, Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, that's an excellent one. Yeah, where they took a concept, they took the kind of twist to it, but they did make it its own. But yet, if you watch the two back to back, you go, oh yeah, there you go.
So here's a question: once a concept is put out there, does that archetype become public domain?
If you follow copyright, no, it still has to be transformative. But there is public domain and fair use, which is very gray, and that's the problem that you fall into, is that when is an idea really protected?
Sure.
And so.
And you're right. That is a good. Once it's out there, replicating the archetype, or is that copyright infringement?
Well, in the case of Chaos, they ripped off the poster art from Last House on the Left. They ripped off the taglines. They took everything.
Wow.
And said
that they created it originally, like on the side without actually ever watching.
They claim it, but there's
Wow.
all evidence to the contrary. And if you're a fan of that movie, I don't. I'm not a religious person. I pray for your frickin' soul.
Don,
But
what were you?
but I mean, even in this situation, even in the situations where the archetype has been transformed into something else, like um, the Three Amigos and Galaxy Quest, or Point Break and
Fast and
Fast and the
Furious.
Furious. I mean, the archetype is still there. Um, you've got these characters doing this thing with sports.
Hmm.
You've got, but the sport is different.
Right. So yeah, you've got the cop who secretly is going into this gang, who's executing these robberies. Wow, I never even thought of me until you mentioned it, Don. That I thought about it. I'm like, holy crap! Fast and Furious and Point Break are like are exact are like
Well,
two.
They're the same story.
that's
Yeah.
the way Doc Hollywood in Cars is.
Hmm.
Exactly.
It's one of the more famous examples. It's like close your eyes and does it seem the same? On paper, does it look the same? But Don brings up a really great question about that. It's like,
Yeah.
where is the
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that at least the majority of people felt that uh, Fast and Furious was the superior product. It was definitely improved on from Point Blank because there's 6 movies. Or
Yeah.
that one's still going. They tried to remake Point Break, and well, yeah, look where that went.
we won't talk about the remake. I saw that.
I'm sorry.
It's
But it was
okay.
the movie everyone was asking for.
Yeah.
The public demanded.
More
Yeah.
Keanu.
If they would have had Keanu in a cameo, that would have made that remake even at least more palatable. I think I was hoping for it. They never had it though. What about you, Glenn? Don posed an interesting question. Do you have any opinion on that? On once that story, that archetype's out there, when does it come infringement?
Um, I don't know. It's a hard one to say. I mean, there are some things that um, is boy, it's really a gray area.
Yeah.
Really, really is because I mean, how do you say that this is a? I mean, there's some obvious things where you could say that's obviously a direct copy of some other character. Like
Right.
if I made a movie with a dude in a tinfoil suit and I called him the Tin Man and he was searching for a heart, well, that's pretty much. But then you have to say, is if I have a robot and people call him the Tin Man, is that the same thing?
Right.
I mean, because technically, in a way, the Tin Man's kind of like a robot, but he's not really. So it's that really gray area of what
Sure.
really is protected. Now, of course, if it's anything that Disney owns, my God, if I make a movie and I call a woman a Jasmine, or I use the scent of Jasmine, they may come after me because, well, with Aladdin, we own Jasmine and all corresponding things with Jasmine. If your neighbor don't own Jasmine, we own her too.
Yeah, but they're
So,
fine with calling Johnny Five Wally.
Yeah.
yes. Well, because no one's going to go after Disney.
Yeah.
That would be just silly.
I
That'd
mean,
be.
what, you think Molly Ringwald's got the money? Not Molly Ringwald. Ali Sheedy's got the money to go after Disney?
Yeah. So great question, Don. That does have a gray area. Paul, did you have anything to add at all to Don's?
Again, it's like I said about copyrights. I deal with copyrights all the time because I do like fan images and stuff like that,
Sure.
and I have to be very careful in what I use. And derived works are still protected, because even if I take the original image and transform it just slightly, it's still called derived because I derived it from the original image, and it's still protected. Whereas something that would be done in the style of this particular person, Like I can use superhero characters and I can dress them up in similar costumes, but I can't use I can't use the bat symbol on their chests. I can't, I have to be careful about the types of masks that they would have to put on in him. Those are the type of things that you do have to worry about, and that's you're protected under copyright, which is kind of different than what we were talking here. But
right, but it's still,
does apply.
I mean, it does apply to the ripoffs, definitely. Just how far do they go before they're infringing on the original?
It comes down to if the original owner is willing to fight for it,
sure.
then they will. If they don't want to, or they don't think that you're making any money off of their work, or anything, or like if you're not hurting their image also, then a lot of times that falls under the free use of things. And yeah, the concepts can't really be like, say for example, Night of the Living Dead, even though technically it was public domain, but like you can use zombies,
Sure.
the concept of zombies, that's just an archetype. But if you start following, say, okay, they all meet up in the house and all the zombies are attacking them from the outside, and you have, a person of color, a female, a young kid, then you're starting to get into that gray area and you're starting to push it. So, but zombie films by themselves are fine.
Right. And I actually did see a film, I forgot the name of it, but it basically was a ripoff of Night of the Living Dead, because at the very end they had the kids come out of the house and people thought they were zombies and they shot them. I mean, like, I looked at it going, oh, wow, really? We didn't even try on this one.
Yeah, but they would say they were paying tribute to it, or paying homage to it, but it's still ripping it off because it's no different.
Yeah,
It's not different, exactly.
It felt exactly the same. There was no real mystery there. Paul, what about you for a solid homage film? I know
my solid homage to fit my description is Star Wars being a homage to Seven Samurai and The Hidden Fortress, both by Kurosawa.
Oh, nice. That and Lucas has even said that those were films his inspirations for him. And if you watch those films, you can see the similarities or the influence, but he wasn't replicating so much like Tarantino does.
Well, and Lucas does the smart thing. He takes actual two different stories from the same person, and then combines the elements that he liked from those two. So he doesn't do like shot-for-shot copies of things. He combines the concepts. Like, for example, Star Wars is about basically building up a team that goes and attacks the bad guys, which is pretty much Seven Samurai, The whole movie, the whole first, 2 hours of the movie is them building up this team. Then they also have the sword play, and there are some lines in there, like characters from the film are not like what they were in Magnificent Seven. They weren't just exact kind of, okay, you're playing this type of character, you're playing this type of character. He mixes it around, like C-3PO is representative of the farmers, and C-3PO says a line that pretty much kind of represents the farmers in Seven Samurai when he says basically that they're just made to suffer, and that's his lot in life. And then you got Luke, who's pretty much two different characters from Seven Samurai. He's the apprentice, but he's also like the farmer's son who wants to be a hero.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that.
But and that's why I think also too he had to go and kiss Leia. Was because
you sick man.
No. He represented the young apprentice who has the love interest in Seven Samurai. He's just like the Katsurio character.
Sure. Yep.
And so that's why he was the young. He was the young hero, the apprentice, and so he needed to have the love interest. The only female in the entire galaxy, other than that one. I want to call her Mon Mothma, but.
And Mon Mothma and the Twi'lek girl.
But is Leia, so of course he had to kiss. I mean, if he wouldn't kissed a stormtrooper, that would have been a little awkward. Not like kissing a sister is not awkward at all.
I was going to say, Paul, I'd stop now. You're digging yourself into a hole, man.
At some point, some of this isn't English anymore, and I don't know what you guys are talking
about. That Star Wars is an excellent example of an homage. And then, for me,
Well, how transparent was Lucas about those influences when the movie was new? Does anybody know?
I don't think he was as transparent as he would have. Like, I think later on he tended to be more
Because that
open
to me
about
is
it.
a thing, and I don't mean to derail what Mark
No, go
what you were
ahead,
about to do,
Andrew.
but I was just,
Go
it's
ahead.
like my part of my, and I'll stop talking about chaos in a second. I've had this building up for years, so I
That's okay.
apologize. It's like they couldn't get away with that now. There's
Sure.
too much of an awareness. Communication is different. But
Mhm.
back in the day, back in the time of some of this other stuff where the what they were borrowing from or influenced by or homaging or ripping off or whatever wasn't such a widely circulated thing. Like, who'd seen Hidden Fortress
Right.
and,
Exactly.
when Star Wars came out, really?
Mhm.
And did they know that when they were putting that script together? I'm
Definitely.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it came out in later interviews. I'm not sure in the original interviews. You'd have to probably dig through some archives, and
That's what I was
I'm
saying. Nowadays, you can't deny it,
yeah.
and you might as well just say when someone asks you. But back then, I wonder how often he was asked about it and what his answer was.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I haven't watched a lot of the original interviews of stuff back then, so I couldn't say. But I'm sure there's at least one Star Wars fan out there who does have that posted. So you could probably find it on YouTube if it's not been blocked for copyright infringement.
Nice.
Sorry, it popped into my head. I thought if anyone knew, I was curious.
No, I don't know offhand. Glenn or Don, do you know at all if he admitted it early or was it later on?
I would suspect later on.
Yeah.
Although,
I don't know, because I mean it's
It's
hard to say.
so
Knowing it is such a the thing is what it's copied from. I mean, that is Star Wars is a Western.
Right.
It's an archetypal Western, and I mean it's such a this is what you learn in film school approach to how to make a film.
True.
I mean, it really is.
Halloween is high noon, and John Carpenter always says that.
Right.
Yes. So I don't know whether he admitted it, but I don't know if anyone asked him either in the early days.
They might not have made that. Many might not have made that connection outside of the film.
Right. I guess the point I'm trying to make is when he was putting it together, was he pretty sure no one would ask him?
Oh, I'm not sure on that. That'd be
Film cultures change, communications change, awareness, everything. We're just living in different times. This is an interesting thought.
The way he talks about it now, though, it seems like he intended to always honor that source material. So I think even if he didn't answer that right away, I don't think he gave it even a second. Like, oh, now I have to invent this reason. Like, why is it like this?
Yeah,
I don't think he had that ever in his mind.
A lot of it's so on the nose that he couldn't possibly.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the culture, our cultural perspective of cinema, and that could be a whole other discussion, has changed over the years, and how we approach movies is different than back then too. So I mean, that I think enters into it. But that's a really good point as well, Andrew. I have to do some possible digging on that. So excellent pick in there, Paul. And for me, it's a movie that I didn't quite care for the first time I saw it 20 years ago. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary. Dawn loves it. I watched it again just before here after I've known now for 20 years stuff behind it. I'm talking about Barbed Wire.
Yay!
Hell yeah.
Barbed Wire
I love that movie.
is an homage to Casablanca. And when I first saw it back when I was 20 years old, well, 21, well, at the time, probably still 20. I didn't have my birthday yet. But in any case, when I watched it, I just didn't quite care for it. I think I was too focused on Pamela Anderson. And I was, and while I don't remember Humphrey Bogart doing a Flashdance striptease with water in the opening of Casablanca,
It's just because the boobs weren't as impressive.
It could be it. Knowing now what I didn't know then, and that it was meant to be, and it was admitted as such as a Casablanca, you can see it all over this film. But at the same time, I didn't feel like it was ripping off the film, because there is enough change to the main character. There's enough but yet you do have those archetypes. You do have similar situations. But for me, I think it's an homage film. What about you, Paul? You think Barbed Wire is an homage film or a ripoff?
It fits in my definition of ripoff, so.
Does it? Oh, okay.
But
no,
it's
that's
still,
why I asked you.
I still watch it.
Mhm. Yeah,
I haven't watched it in a while. Maybe I should.
What about you, Andrew? Barbed Wire, ripoff or homage?
Oh, to me, it's both, man, because I got the unrated version, VHS, bought it the day it came out, I saw it in theaters. I freaking love Barbed Wire. I was a Dark Horse Comics guy back then, man. Couldn't wait. I followed it like I followed Tank Girl, which is the movie I prefer.
Yay.
But still, because Tank Girl had the better art. But no, because it doesn't even superficially resemble Casablanca if you haven't seen it. But
Right.
if you have seen Casablanca, especially with the end with the guys in uniform and all that stuff, you're like, this is not even trying to be subtle about what it's doing here. But think of the freaking brass nuts to try something like that, man.
Sorry, I can't stop laughing.
You know, I mean, I don't know, man. Barbed Wire doesn't get the praise it deserves. Freaking Spice World doesn't. Showgirls doesn't. A lot of my favorite crap from around this time isn't crap. It's awesome, and I'm glad you. So are you saying you liked it, dude, when you watched it the second time? Is that what you're saying?
I appreciated it a lot more, especially knowing that it was a send-up. I got a kick out of it.
I got higher aspirations, man.
I got a kick out of what they were going for with it and what they were attempting. And you're right, cojones to go for the classic Casablanca and remake it as this highly action, gory, sexualized, comic book film before comic book
forgot
film.
sleazy.
I did forget sleazy. I heard the sigh, Glenn. Homage or ripoff?
Garbage. Barbed Wire was that's the first movie I reviewed
Oh,
for the B
wow.
Movie Bunker.
Oh, nice. And you ripped it apart?
I believe I made comments alluding to, a movie that was made for solely 13-year-old boys. And if you weren't a 13-year-old boy, I held up a picture of Pam Anderson and showed them what was in store for them if they actually looked under her clothing. And I peeled away part of her dress to reveal Skeletor, because if you have some of Pamela Anderson, Skeletor will eat your dick.
Oh my god.
Skeletor lives inside her cooch. So.
Wow.
Oh. So you don't care for Barbed Wire?
Now, that said, there are parts of it that are just ridiculously. I mean, when Fat Dude gets blown up with the grenade, the look on his face, that was my friend's screensaver for like 4 years.
Oh, nice.
Tiny
So,
Lister's in it. Clint Howard, Udo Kier, man.
You haven't had a collection of this cast since a Uwe Boll film.
Yeah, and she did all her own stunts in that corset and those heels, man. I couldn't do that shit.
yeah, and there's lots of great people who lived in Germany in 1941, but
So, prime example right here, folks, of not only film being subjective, but what homage and ripoff.
No, most people hated it. It got nominated for like a ton of those
Razzies,
Raspberry Awards. The
Golden
legacy of Barbed
Yeah.
Wire is not what I say it is. It's what Glenn says it is.
Yeah, it is. Glenn holds the popular opinion of this film, and I'm not saying it's a great film, but knowing now that it was an homage to, they were going for Casablanca, you can see it across this film. Dawn, you already kind of mentioned it that you enjoyed this film, but would you say
very
it was
much so.
Would you say it's ripoff or homage?
Now, based on my opinions, does it improve on the source material? That's highly debatable. But it certainly is inventive and creative.
Sure.
Twist on the source material, which and certainly the intention is to be homage.
Right.
So, by the strictest definition, homage. Now, to people with different tastes than that may be crap, but I never said I had good taste. I love it. I love it.
And I admit I'm mentally a 13-year-old boy, so thank you, Glenn, for calling me on that. So, no, I just kid. No, again, film is subjective, and we're gonna wrap it up here. And I think, as you've caught from our discussion tonight, folks, even ripoff versus homage, regardless of what the definition is in the dictionary, can be subjective as well as gray area, though you get films like Chaos, which it's pretty blatant. There are examples out there, as with anything, that are prime examples of, look, this is true, this is the way it is, but there's also a lot of films that I think, and why I wanted to do this is, a lot of films that get called out as ripoffs, and it's made to think that this film is bad for it, or it's called homage when, it's not. So I mean, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of films out there that people use the ripoff term, or as a negative connotation, when it's not necessarily negative. I mean, the film is bad, even if they did rip it off. But so that's what I kind of wanted to do with this. Is just I don't know if you have any clear idea of what a homage versus ripoff, but hopefully we've given you a list of films to put on your must-watch list to see if we're right or wrong or full of shit. So we're going to go down the line really quick. We're going to have everybody here kind of pimp their stuff before we close it out for the evening. Dawn, where can we find you at?
You can find me at intheaudience.net.
Fantastic. And Glenn?
You can find me on YouTube at the B-Movie Bunker and Naked Hope Productions. You can also find me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
Fantastic. And Andrew?
Hey, everybody. Well, you could find me wishing that they would go ahead and put Pam Anderson in remakes of other Michael Curtis movies like White Christmas, Mildred Pierce, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Captain Blood, yada, yada, yada. But also, meanwhile, while I wait for that patiently to happen, you can be cool and rent some of my movies on Amazon On Demand. We have Fake Blood, Mondo Gonzo, Pajama Nightmare, and the latest, The Underground Cinema, Cinema with an S, and we are currently in post-production on our latest feature, Late Night Cable, and there's going to be giant boobs and a remote control in the front. Very excited about that. And watch movies for free on YouTube, GONZORIFFIC. We just put our movie Booty Meat on Vimeo for free, so check it out.
That's on my must.
G-O-N-Z-O.
G-O-N-Z-O Gonzo.
Movies in your face, so.
Yummy. Yummy. And Paul, go ahead, sir.
First place you can find me is at the Northeast Wisconsin Horror Film Festival at New Horror Fest at Outlook.com. And you can find all of my reviews on Facebook, Twitter, and WordPress. Well, not on Twitter, technically, but we'll back that up again. You can find me normally at Facebook, Twitter, and WordPress at Forsaken Film Reviews.
Awesome. And what was the name of the festival again that's coming up this year?
It's the Northeast Wisconsin Horror Film Festival, or the New Horror Fest at Outlook.com.
Awesome. So stay tuned for that. We'll have more information on that as it gets closer to the date of that festival. And you can find all the links to these lovely folks' work and even some of my stuff at specialmarkproductions.com, where you can also find the entire archive of the Spoiler Room. Please make sure you subscribe if you haven't on iTunes and rate us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You can catch us on Twitter at MovieManiac3D or Spoiler Room PD. CS, that's P as in Paul, D as in David, C as in Cat, S as in Sam, podcast, at Spoiler Room Podcast. We're on the twits there as well. But SpecialMarkProductions.com is one place you can go to find pretty much links to everything. I'm partnered now with NerdSlant.com, which is an upcoming site. I do stuff for We Live Film. I'm just a movie slut, basically. So I want to thank this crew for coming together tonight and having this discussion. Hope you found it interesting. Thank you so much for joining us in the Spoiler Room. Look for our next episode. I didn't plan on a weekly one, but we are going to have one next week, and it's going to be discussing Turbo Kid. So you'll want to stay tuned for that one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, in the Spoiler Room, the conversation is fresh, but we do spoil the movies.